of Amsterdam in the late 1950s said in 30 years' time, no one's going to be riding a bike in Amsterdam. You know, the car is the future. The businessmen, political parties were all for it. So the cars completely overwhelmed the city in the 1960s. You know, where we're standing, there were cars parked absolutely everywhere. You barely see a parked car from where I'm standing right now at all.
What a lot of people don't know, we've been where you've been. You know, where cars were everything. You know, cars were progress. And they try to build highways through the downtown area. You know, and a lot of kids got killed in traffic. And halfway to the 70s, people here said no more. It was too much. So they rose up and they made a change for the better because it was just unacceptable.
This is a special spot in Amsterdam. It is right at the edge of the city center. Behind the camera, you see the narrow streets of the city center, and right behind me, you see a wider profile. This street had been widened, and the idea was in the 1970s to make this street so wide that it would connect to a circular route around the city center that was placed here, 6 lanes of cars, so that all the city center could be easily reached by car. But the people in Amsterdam, they realized what should happen, what has to happen to make this a 6-lane car street. Then you have to break down houses over there and even further and fill in parts of the canals. So many people opposed this plan. In 1972, early 1972, it was in the city council. This part of the plan was rejected, and that in the end was sort of the end of the old traffic plan for the city.
So many people realized, oh, this thing with everyone owning a car in this city, it's not working. They're loud, they're polluting, they're noisy, there's just no room for them all, and they're dangerous, so that the tide began to turn.
Canal rings of Amsterdam, like where we are here, there's a lot of shared space in terms of pedestrians, cars, bicycles, mopeds. It's very easy, it works, the cars aren't driving so fast, and the bikes aren't even going that fast either. So everyone takes turns, everyone is nice and civilized about it. On the main arterial roads, it's a different story. The cars are driving much faster. And so there's off-street cycle paths, which range between 6 and 8 feet in width. And the cyclists then have a straight shot to wherever they're going, and they're protected because they're on a raised cycle path.
The whole system is built for utilitarian cyclists, for grandmas, for little kids, for mamas and papas, for executives, for whoever's riding their bike. And you're riding on simple bikes, you're not going fast. And people show a lot of respect, especially if you're riding with kids.
Here we are at the busiest bicycle junction in Amsterdam, and actually it's also a very busy car junction, and underneath we have the metro line. If you start counting now how many cyclists are crossing this junction, you have high numbers. And then the bikes have to stop because the cars are coming. And these cars, you think, oh, there's many more cars than you have bicycles, but it's not true. There's way more cyclists going here in only 30 seconds than cars are crossing in the other direction in 1.5 minutes. So there you see the big advantage of cycling for a city is that you have way higher capacity of people if they go by bike than if they go by car.
People do anticipate better than any other place you'll see because it's so busy, crowded in a small space. People have a sixth sense for what's going on around them. They have a very good spatial awareness.
In general, you see cyclists, they can fit in a small space, but they need their space as well to balance. The bicyclists in Amsterdam are capable cyclists. If things are not clear, they negotiate. It's very interesting to see, but the best way to see it is to experience it yourself.
You have signals, you don't see them. Amsterdam cyclists don't stick their arms out. They don't do this to go right. You don't see that kind of thing. They make a subtle little gesture. I'm going right, I'm going left. And everybody understands that, and people adjust, and they spend so much time on a bike, it's no big deal if somebody bumps their handlebar against your hip or something like that. You don't get scared. You say, excuse me.
I'm sure an intersection like this would be considered extremely dangerous in the US because it's uncontrolled. There are no stop signs and no traffic signals here. At first glance, this does look like chaos, but in the end it all works. Everyone does what they're supposed to do. Actually, when you see something not working here, It's, I would say 9 out of 10 times it's because it's a tourist on a bike.
On streets where there are no traffic lights, you're really much more in touch with all the other cyclists on the road and with the drivers as well. People look at each other in your eyes, you make your hand signals. You're much more in touch with humanity on your bike than I think anywhere else in the world.
For an outsider to come in and see what the Dutch are doing creates a very weird, warped perception about what it takes to become a cycle city.
When I first came here, the very first thing I did, before I'd even arranged housing, before I'd bought groceries, before I'd bought breakfast, I went and bought a cheap second-hand piece of crap bicycle. And I just jumped in because I wanted to see what it was like to ride a bike here. And no, it wasn't a shock, but it was a surprise. And I have to say, even after years of being a bike racer and riding in the peloton and rubbing elbows with everybody, it was very strange to be on an upright bike in street clothes, riding through the streets of Groningen up north, elbow to elbow with regular people, going to work, going to school with their kids, with their groceries, whatever, and just seamlessly flowing through the world on bicycles.
I lived in the Bay Area for about 6 years, and in Berkeley and Oakland, and used my hybrid commuter bike for nearly everything. But my household had 2 cars for 2 people, and here we have 3 bikes for 2 people and no cars.
When I first arrived in Amsterdam 11 years ago, one morning I was on my way to school. I came through the Rijksmuseum tunnel over there. And when I came out and I got to this intersection, there were so many cyclists that I thought I need to count. But I counted 927 cyclists passing through this one little tiny space in 20 minutes. And that was enough for me. After that, when Dutch people would ask me, why did you leave America? And I said, because I saw 927 cyclists in 20 minutes. Of course, the Dutch all scratched their head thinking, what the hell's that? What's the big deal there? One theme throughout my book is discusses the reputation of Amsterdam cyclists. They have a current reputation as being anarchistic and causing chaos. These guys were supposed to let that tram pass by. They were supposed to yield to the tram, but they didn't. But there was, 5 of them, so power in numbers. But yeah, on this street in particular, there was calls of how anarchistic and chaotic the cyclists were in the 1920s, 1950s, 1970s, right up to the present day.
There's 2 sides of the I guess, amazing things you see people doing in Amsterdam on a bike thing. For one, these people have grown up on bicycles. They've been on their parents' bikes since they're babies, and they've been riding every day of their life probably, so they're very good bike riders. And second, it's just human nature. People do what they're going to do. People drive cars, talking on phones, carrying stuff, tending to their screaming kids in the back seat, and they're going to do exactly the same thing on bikes here. The big difference is when a bike rider makes a mistake and rams into something, he probably only hurts himself and nobody else. And when a motorist does it, they take out a store or a sidewalk full of people.
It's not that necessarily that kind of bike culture where people are very aware of that they have a culture. Abroad, a bike culture is usually a subculture. It's an acknowledgement of subculture, as in you stand out because not many people do it. Here, it's so ingrained, it's so part of everyday life, that if you tell a Dutch person like, oh, you have such a nice bike culture, like, what do you mean? Because a Dutch person will think of bike culture as something subcultural, as in, well, you have a bike culture when you're on a fixie or on a BMX or something like that. So it's kind of strange contradiction.
It's something so normal, so ingrained into everyday life that nobody treats it as something special. It's just the way life is.
Riding with my kids once or twice every day is probably the highlight of the day. It's really fun. My kids have been riding on bikes since they're maybe a month old. First in a box bike, and then later sitting in the handlebars or behind the handlebars on my own bike. And they see how it all works, and they learn how the flow works, and where to go, when to go left, when to go right, how the traffic signals work, and how the whole interaction and system works. So now Pascal, at almost 5, is a perfectly competent little city cyclist.